After having been working on action films for a long time, now I often think this way. I've made the same action before. My colleagues and I would say, we already did this in that film. It's not fun to make a film when you get stuck in a rut. I tried to do something completely different for Hydra. When I have complete freedom of creativity, I try to do something experimental that is not following the existing format itself.